comes up the staircase into the museum, this is the first thing they see. I think their eyes just go right to Nipper up there, Nipper the dog. And of course, Nipper represents, or used to anyway, Victor phonograph, and RCA took over. But here's Nipper listening to his master's voice. I might add, this is a very valuable phonograph. It's very early. We're talking now back in the early 1900s. We do have a collection of early records here, because keep in mind, that was your first form of early entertainment in the home. That was mechanical. These records represent the very first turn of the century, progressively through the years, ending up with the large electrical transcriptions. These were used in early broadcast stations. Back in the 30s, you'd have 15-minute programs. And these were the records, or transcriptions as they were called, for the radio station. Up here are some very early reproducers, or pickups. Some of them are very unique. This particular one, this is hard to believe. It's a mechanical pickup, but it has a carbon microphone in here. Very crude, believe me. This is an interesting one up here. You'll notice that I can turn the head here. Why? Because some records were Edison, which were Hill and Dale, or vertical cut, and others, of course, were lateral cut. Let's move along here and look at some of the radios that we have in this section. And this, I think, is an excellent example of a receiver of the mid-30s. This is a Scott, and note that it's all chrome. It's a beautiful set, highly collectible, and I might add, not only is it nice to look at, but it's a wonderful receiver. These Scott and McMurdo Silver, the other is companion to it, these sets were all made in the mid-30s. Well, actually they started out in the early 30s, and they made some after the war. Why is this set in glass? Well, for no reason, really. In the 1920s, it was very popular to build your own radio. And someone accepted the challenge of making their receiver in plate glass. It's a beautiful set. You can look at it. Everything seems to be hanging in the air. Every time I look at this set, one thing comes to mind. I just picture the fellow drilling the holes in this plate glass, and he gets to the last hole, and the glass is cracked. So once he accomplished drilling the holes, he assembled the set. We like to display this because it's unique, and you can see all the parts, all the components hanging in the air. We put a light underneath and to look at, make it look more spectacular. It's a beautiful thing. Does the set work any better because it's in plate glass? I don't think so. This was the ultimate in a TRF set. It's a Sergeant Raymond, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of tuned RF in the set. Very beautiful set, dated about 1927, 1928. All nicely shielded, and because the TRF sets became obsolete when RCA opened the patents to other organizations to manufacture the radio as we know it today. You can't see it too well, but this is a Stromberg-Carlson console. You can tell the age of a radio frequently by the style. It's like a car. Early radios, consoles and all again, were highboys. Why? Highboy, they had high legs. But by 32, 33, the legs disappeared and they were on the floor. So you can look at a radio, if it has high legs, you know that it was made in 1928, 1930, of that period. Now, we move along here. I don't know if you can see over here. Here's a beautiful Philco receiver. And the interesting thing about this Philco is, I think it's 1939. See if I can get this down here. Very few people recognize this. I'll be truthful with you. When I first saw it, I didn't know what the thing was. What it is a remote dial control. You could sit over in your chair across the room, and you would actually dial the station that you wanted. Now, this was most unusual. We're talking 50, 55 years ago. And what it really is a wireless transmitter. And this, in turn, would tune in the receiver on the other side of the room. Now, you don't think much about this today because I'm sure all of you have television where you have the remote control. You just sit there and flick from channel to channel. In the old days, this is what they used to use. This is most unusual. Does it work? I really don't know. We never tried it out. Today, people collect almost anything. You name it, they collect it, except old people. Down in here, we have table model receivers. These are plastic table models. Some of them are quite valuable, others are not. The Catalan is the most desirable. Some Catalan table model sets go for $2,000 to $3,000. It's a special type of plastic. It's very beautiful in appearance. The radio itself, the radio has very little value. It's the cabinet or the plastic finish that is most desirable. Right here's a radio made in a baseball. Here's one over here, here's a Hopalong Cassidy radio. Here's one in a globe. These sets are all made before World War II. They're very collectible, and one can have a large collection of table model receivers. We've been looking at all kinds of radios here, but we haven't looked at anything but what one might call modern. Modern radios, of course, are solid state. And in recent years, there's been much interest in these solid state radios. Really, this interest started all back in the 60s and 70s with these little pocket radios. And some of them, like the TR1, is going for many hundreds of dollars. These are nice to collect. They're small, and you can have quite a collection in a small area, small space. We have an exhibit here, various different models, and of course there's a combination here. You have both American-made as well as Japanese. This is a very common radio. They don't make these anymore for some reason. Now, in this same group, we have the exotic type of radios. I like to show this one. This is a kind of mustard. Really? No, it isn't. It's a radio.
When was caught, the officer was not hit by the gunfire, so Siplin is now in police custody.
The controls, the volume, off and on switch is underneath. This is a novelty radio. Here's one in a Welch grape juice can. If I remember rightly, one would have to have 4 or 5 labels from an original can, send in $5, and they would give you this radio. And it's really a small radio. And these, as I say, have become very collectible. Over here, we have a variety of these little radios. Down in the end, there's one in a pair of sunglasses. You walk around with a pair of sunglasses, and sure enough, it was a radio. The hearing side of the earphones on one side and the batteries on the other. Here's one that works on solar power. Another one's a wristwatch radio. Here's one made in the form of a battery. These have all become very collectible in recent years. And they're not hard to find, I might add. You can find these in garage sales. After all, they were only made, 15, 20 years ago.